joining. This is the week 2 webinar series from Exacq Vision. My name is Brandon Herr with IP Security Reps. Thank you all for joining. Again, we're focusing on the Illustra analytics inside of Exacq Vision today. We've got Greg Parcell with Exacq Vision, who is in a sales engineering role, who's going to walk us through the analytics. The reason we wanted to focus on this as a 30-minute session with our customers is this is some of the biggest things that we've been doing over the last, call it 18 months, are adding in support for edge-based analytics, specifically with Illustra and other manufacturers. And either you just haven't seen the latest and greatest, or maybe you want to see some of the new features inside of Exacq Vision. That's why we brought you here today. So thank you again for joining. And I know that Greg Parcell has got a pretty good presentation. He's going to walk you through not only how to configure and how to set some of these analytics up, but why you would use some of these. What are some of the special things that you can do to help save on forensic searching? And what are the implications on hard drive, network, etc. So with that, Greg, I will pass it over to you and let you get started with your presentation. Again, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. Let me apologize up front. I'm either coming down with a cold or allergies or a combination of both, and my voice is a little bit shaky this morning. So bear with me on that. But we'll dive into this. This is actually, this title slide is showing a little loop recording. This is an Exacq customer out in Massachusetts at the Steamship Authority. They have our cameras in their buildings and parking lots, and then also on the ferry boats themselves. And they're utilizing our analytic capabilities, and I'll kind of highlight those as we go through today. So this is the second part of a 5-part webinar series we've got constructed right now. I call these mini webinars. These are 30-minute presentations. They're focused on a single topic. It's not intended to be a deep dive, but just more of a kind of a high-level overview. Quite frankly, our intent here is to help drive interest for you and your customers so that you can come back to us and say you would like the deeper dive, you would like some more information on this particular topic. A couple weeks ago, we did the new mobile app. Today, we're doing analytics. We've also got teed up, ready to go, LPR recognition in Illustra, real-time awareness, event management, event linking, event monitoring. And then an important topic, I think, more and more is archiving, backing up video. We've launched our new S-Series platform, but we also support now Wasabi and Amazon S3 from an archiving perspective. So let IP Security Reps know what topic you want to see next, and we'll be happy to dive into that. Okay, so for today, we're going to look at the analytics. This is looking at analytics in the camera from an Illustra perspective. Quite honestly, a lot of what we're showing, the setup, the forensic searching, all of that is very similar to what you would do with an Access camera or a Hanwha camera, either one. So we'll get into the different types of analytics, how to set it up on the camera, how to set it up in Exacq, and then what you can do with it once you've done that. So I'm going to return back to that title slide showing the analytics out at the Steamship Authority. But what I want to point out here is the left-hand image is the image that you're used to looking at. It's the image that's being recorded. That's what we see every day. The right-hand image is showing that same camera, but I pulled a second stream that shows me the analytics that the camera is seeing. This is a live look at, from the camera perspective, it's trying to identify, there's people walking across. It'll try to identify not only that that's a person, but what color clothes are they wearing. It'll identify the vehicle types, cars, trucks, buses, and the color of those. So now we're recording not only the video, but we're recording that metadata, that raw data associated with that, and that will permit me later on to do a search on show me when a red car came into the parking lot. When did the person with the yellow jacket come into a scene, that type of a thing. And I'll show you examples of that here in a minute. Okay, so where do we start? We start actually in the camera web interface. You would log on to the camera web interface, and on the Illustra, you're going to see on the left-hand side an analytics menu or a sub-menu, and it's going to have different types of analytics that are available, and you can choose those. The one thing I want to point out initially is motion detection and face detection. These are analytics, but these aren't specific object analytics, and we're going to concentrate on those today. But for motion detection, you can enable that in the camera. You can create your different zones, represented here by the yellow boxes, set your sensitivity settings. Those will carry over into Exacq, and we'll be able to do the motion recordings and the searches on that as you normally would. We've been doing that for years now. What I want to point out too is you're going to see an option for face detection. And I want to point out this is not facial recognition. This is simply an analytic built into the camera to detect someone's face and report that they have found a face. It doesn't tell us who it is at all. I can't look them up. We're not supporting facial recognition today in Exacq, but the analytic is there. And this will come into play in the future when we start to do some appearance searching and some other types of advanced analytics that the camera will be able to pass us this information. So I just want to point that out. It is in the camera. Typically, there's no need to really enable it, but I just wanted to let you know that that is there. All right, so let's talk about object detection. And I've split this chart into two halves. We have the Flex Generation 4 cameras and the analytics that they support on the left, and then the Pro Generation 4 cameras on the right. So the Pro is going to support everything that the Flex does, but we get a few extra analytics. We get the cart is a shopping cart, backpack, handbag, suitcases. Also tripwire. What's a little bit different about tripwire or the perimeter analytic, either one, is cameras have had these in the past, but they've kind of relied on motion detection, pixel changes to trip that particular analytic. What we can do now with tripwire is set up the analytics, but also combine that to say there has to be a person in that area to set that analytic off, or there has to be a car to set that off. It helps eliminate the false positives of the squirrel running across the scene and tripping the analytic, or the wind blowing in the background, that type of thing. Okay, when we get into the creating this analytic on the camera, again, we're going to define different areas, regions of interest here on the right, represented in yellow. We're going to give it a name. We're going to say, what are we interested in? Cars, trucks, people, and then what type of analytic. Is it just basic object detection? Do I want to do a linger? Someone has to be in an area for a certain amount of time. Here's where the tripwire perimeters. I'm going to give you some examples of these in a minute. But we have to set this up in the camera itself first. We can even set on Illustra, this is unique, a minimum confidence level. And if I set it to 40%, which is the lowest, it's going to give me much more data. Some of it may be false, but if I start to slide this up to 50% or 60%, the results I get will be less data, but probably more accurate. It's something that you can fine tune within the camera. And generally, I try to keep it probably in that 40 to 50% level in that range. We also can create analytics for a specific type of an event. And here's some examples that I've done. Backpack detection, crowd detection, Crowd detection, you define an area, it could be this bottom left portion of the frame as an example. And you say, you define what a crowd is. Is it 5 people? Is it 50 people? This dwell, I have dwell 30. I have a analytic in there. If someone stays in a certain area for 30 seconds or longer, send me trip the analytic and send me some type of a notification. Area breach, I'm going to show you an example of that. People counting, this is just being added into the Illustra cameras. You could have if you had an entry door, you could count the number of people coming in. You could also count the people going out. And you'll see this increment in real time. You can set some thresholds to where if more than 100 people come through the door, send out some type of alert or notification. Okay, so that's the basic setup on the Illustra side. You've done this in the web interface. You set your parameters. Now we move over into Exacq. And in Exacq, the first thing I want to point out is right up here where I've got this label in red, important. If you make any changes to the analytics on that camera web interface, you've added an analytic, you've changed some of the parameters, you've done anything on that camera web interface, the first thing that we need to do in Exacq is come to our Add IP cameras and simply toggle this. Just disable it and then re-enable it. What we're forcing Exacq to do is go out to the camera and retrieve any of those analytic rule changes that you created, and we'll have the most current ones in Exacq at that point. So a lot of times people will call me and say, Greg, I set the analytics up in the camera. I come into Exacq, I'm not seeing anything. This is probably the reason why, and they just need to toggle that. Now, when you do toggle that and the camera reconnects, we will pull in all the analytics that are defined on that camera. You can see represented right here in this box. You'll see an analytic tab on the right in the camera properties. And one of the things I can do here is set the colors of my bounding boxes. I could have different colors for different analytics. By default, we're recording all the analytic metadata. That's that raw data. Record video here will be unchecked. And the only, you can check this, but what we're simply doing, we're always obeying the rules of the camera schedule. So if you're set for motion recording, or if you're set for continuous recording, we're still doing that. We're recording the video. If I check record video here, what we're simply doing is if one of these analytics triggers, I'm going to record that as alarm video. It's going to show up when I do my search as a red type of selection or in the red bar as alarm video. And I can set pre and post triggers based on that analytic. So it's one way to further kind of define that video when you do your searches. It's up to you whether or not you want to enable that. All right, let's talk about searching, and I'm going to show you a real example here in a minute. To do an analytic search on a camera, we basically start with a timeline search. You're going to give it a start and end time, give it the camera name. On the left-hand side on the camera tree, you're going to select the analytic metadata, click search, and you're going to get back the timeline bar of the video. That's the top, the blue bar with the green in the middle there. That's the video. But now you're going to get a second bar, and it's that analytic metadata. And this is almost solid. You can see in this example. It's representative of all that raw data that's coming in to the system. So the most important thing we're going to want to do, though, is to be able to filter that data and to look for something specific. So let me show you the next slide. And in this example, we're going to go back to this intersection in New York that we were at. And I'm going to do a basic timeline search here. And now I'm going to do a filter. When I click on filter, I'm picking yellow buses. I click search filter again, or search again, and notice that this red bar at the bottom, which was solid, is now just showing me specific events where it thinks a yellow bus came in to the frame. So this is a way of taking, on this example, it's a couple hours worth of video. It's a very busy intersection. There's hundreds of vehicles going through here at any given time. But it allows me to search for that. I'm going to play that again because it goes kind of fast. So we start out with the initial timeline search. There's that solid red. I click show filters, go vehicle, bus in yellow, hit search again. And now we're returning just the events where we think a yellow bus came through the intersection. At this point, I could export my video. I can do anything, I can do bookmarks, build my cases, whatever I need to do. All right, another example. This time we're going to look for clothing color. So again, I've done my initial timeline search already. I do the show filters. I'm looking for people, and I'm going for blue pants and a red shirt, and click search again. Again, the timeline there at the bottom is returning only the events that we think match those criteria. And there's a guy walking across the street with a red jacket and blue pants. The next event is actually those two ladies there. You could argue that's maybe a pink shirt, but certainly it's close enough to qualify for a search in that example. So when you do that show filters, we will only show you the filters that camera can provide us. We know, can it do clothing color? And we know what colors of clothes. We're only going to present you the options that camera supports. All right, next example. Going back to that perimeter detection, and this could be virtual line cross and whatever. Notice in the upper right, I've highlighted this area, this little plaza area. That's pretty far away, actually. And I created a perimeter that's basically this yellow square. And object class, I chose person. And for linger time, I've chosen 2 seconds. So what I'm saying here is trip the analytic if a person walks into that area for 2 seconds or longer. I'll show you how we search for that. I'll give you an example. I do want to highlight this YouTube link here. It's at the bottom. We have a much better, much longer explanation on perimeter detection using these analytics. It's about a 5-minute video, and I would encourage you to check that out. But let me show you how this looks. Again, you're going to start with your basic timeline search, but now I can select that particular analytic. And when I do that, it's only going to return here anytime that perimeter breach was triggered. So I don't have to look for the guy in the red shirt or the, yellow shirt, whatever. I'm just saying, show me when that breach happened, and I come right to the video here. And let me show you on the next slide. This is actually at night, back on that same intersection that we were looking at. But if you notice here, if I click play, it'll work. There's a guy walking across the street up here. He enters this plaza. He's going to be in that section here in just a second. And when he does, that's that analytic that's triggered. Now, at that point, whenever we have these types of analytics and they trigger like that, the result of that could be, if I were doing live monitoring, it could be a screen pop to this camera. It could be an email notification, a text notification. I'll just play that again. We could trip an I/O port on an alarm or a light or whatever the case is, just simply based on the fact that analytic fired up. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, so just a quick look at creating events with analytics, and this is actually the topic of one of our little mini webinars, is doing a deeper dive into event monitoring and event linking. But using event linking. Um, what I've done here is simply created a new event link, and I've chosen analytics as the event type. I've chosen a specific analytic. Again, we're going to populate this with all the analytics that are defined. In this case, a person detection. My action type is notify, and the action target is person detected. So notify is how we send an email or a text message. In the action target, I've set up a profile for a person detected. This could be an email to one or many people. It could be a text to one or many people. That I have predefined under the notification section within Exacq. I could also combine that in a source group. So I could say, if there's a person detected, but I could put a time of day parameter saying between the hours of 10 at night and 5 in the morning. So both of those would have to be true. Then do the notification, that type of thing. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you do that. Event monitoring is tied to doing something live on a monitoring station. So again, I've chosen an analytic, person detected, but in this case, my action type is switch video. So what I'm saying is to the system, whatever an operator is looking at, he could be looking at, 16 cameras. If a person came into this area, I'm going to change the focus of that monitor to that particular camera. I can put a message with that. I can force them to acknowledge it. There's many different things I can do. And at the same time, I could do the email notifications and the text notifications, and I could trigger an IO port on an alarm or a light, whatever I wanted to do. So again, we have a much deeper dive into the creating events. I just wanted to highlight that. And then I've got one more slide here of kind of combining all this. This is a busy slide, I realize, but what I've done is I created, this is using an example of using an event source. So I created an event link with a time trigger looking for a specific analytic, in this case, person detected. I did do a notify. There's that person notification. But this is the email that I received. This is what it looks like. I addressed it to myself. There's an attachment here of a short clip, and the short clip is what's been playing up here at the top. So this was at night in the dark. You notice it's black and white because the camera went into night mode. I can't identify the color of the clothes he's wearing, but I can identify that it is a person. So just one example there. And then here's the other trigger actions here in the bottom left. I could do the output trigger. That would be to an IO port on a device. Go to a preset, many different things I can do here. Okay, I have just 2 more slides here. I call this the commercial part of the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. Just want to make sure that everybody's aware that with Illustra cameras, with the Flex and the Pro cameras, we no longer charge for a camera license when on Exacq hardware. So this is a great cost savings. This started as a promotion probably 18 months ago, 12, 18 months ago, but this is now the standard policy. Also on the Illustra side, and this has been with the last couple releases that we've had, new cameras out of the box. Not only do you not need a license, but they'll kind of, I don't want to say self-configure, but they'll add themselves to the network in a much more automated fashion. And the time to get these up and running has been reduced greatly. So if you have any questions on the promo, or I shouldn't say promo, but the free licensing now, because it's no longer promo, it's standard. Ask your IP security rep, ask your Exacq ASM, and we'll be glad to help you out with that. And then lastly, this is probably about a month old now, but we are shipping Windows 11 on our A series and Q series. That is standard. It's been standard now for about a month. And we do have an upgrade path if you're running Windows 10 to Windows 11. This is very similar to what we did with Windows 7 a couple of years ago to Windows 10. You can go to the website here at the top, put in your serial number. We will let you know if that particular device can be upgraded to Windows 11. And if it can, we'll give you the bill of materials to show you what you need to order on that. So again, any questions on that, let us know, let your reps know. And Brandon, we've got a few minutes for questions. I'll stop sharing. My voice is about gone.
Yeah, no, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. So guys, if you have a question, type it in the chat. That was a great presentation, Greg. Thank you. It was very, uh, tons of info. Again, we're trying to capture this down into a 30-minute clip. We're going to repost this. So if somebody missed it, we'll go ahead and share that link with them. If you do have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat. I just wanted to do a quick review, Greg. If I heard you correctly, all Flex and Pro cameras from Illustra come with AI or analytics object detection on board, right? So no extra licensing purchased from Exacq Vision. Oh, by the way, they come with a free Exacq Vision license, whether that's professional or enterprise. So there's some added value there. What I think got lost is that these come pre-configured out of the box. So you open it up, you plug it in. Metadata is actually already turned on. So you don't need to do anything, and we're already recording all the metadata. What Greg was showing was if you wanted to add some rules, linger, perimeter, line cross, those type of things, that's a little bit of extra configuration, which is what we walked you through. We got a question from Lisa. Are the Exacq Vision licenses for Illustra cameras free even after the purchase of the NVR? And the answer to that is yes, they're always free as long as you meet the criteria of the promotion. So if you buy an NVR today with 10 cameras and say 6 months from now you want to add 2 more Illustra cameras, as long as they're going on that Exacq Vision NVR, it's going to come with the free license. And those can actually be declared via the portal on the website. So great question there, Lisa. Those are some of the things that we get asked every day and can certainly help you out as you need to add those down the road. And yeah, guys, that's it. So if there are no more questions, we'll give everybody another minute or two, and then we'll wrap this up and we'll put the link online for you to come back and watch it again if you need to. So Eric's got a couple questions. Overlap setting under the analytics. Greg, can you touch on what the overlap settings are under the analytics section of the camera? Because I think that is important. Good question, Eric.
When you define that region of interest for the analytic, like in my example, it was the yellow boxes. The overlap setting then can be what percentage of that area, of that yellow box, does the object have to be in order to trip the analytic? So if I set it up high to 80%, basically says that object has to be filling that yellow box before it's going to trip. If I set it down lower and the defaults are low, is saying if it's set to 10, only 10% of that yellow box has to be filled for that analytic to trip.
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the hardest things is fine-tuning the analytics to make sure we're not getting false alarms. It's been a huge turnoff for analytics on cameras in the past, is too many false alarms. So I think what Eric is asking is how can we reduce that? And the second part of your question is, like, we've all seen it, a mailbox, a light pole, etc., is triggering and it thinks it's a person. How do we eliminate that from triggering as a false alarm? Is there an answer to that one, Greg?
One way to do that, or to certainly help that, is to use that confidence level setting that's there. By default, it is set low. And that's it's kind of interesting, at least if you're a nerd like myself. It's interesting to watch the camera try to figure out what these objects are. So at a very low confidence level, a mailbox can kind of look like a short, stumpy person sometime, and it will think it's a person. If I set that confidence level up higher, it's going to figure out, okay, probably not a person, and it's not going to set the trigger on that. So I would use that. I would use the overlap function, and you're going to get, I think, a good result in that.
Yeah, and I see Eric, you've raised the confidence level to the max and it still says person. I think what we could do is probably work with you on how we can fine tune that. There may be some other things we can bring the Illustra folks in as well on that one to help fine tune that. We've got a couple of other questions here. What's the difference between alarms and events while you're in list search mode? That's a great question. We didn't really cover the list search mode in this. We focused on the timeline search, but certainly if we're using analytics, the list search mode might be a good way to search for those analytics. Greg, can you chat about that for a moment?
The list search is going to give you those like thumbnails to look at, and that can be very helpful from that aspect. To be declared an alarm video, I showed that one example of the box actually being unchecked in the camera properties page. But if you click that as record video on the analytic, that will show up then as an alarm video at that point.
So then you can, at the top of the list search, you can filter between motion, events, and alarms.
Yeah.
So if you were looking for those alarms, you would check the alarms. But then what is the event tab search?
Probably motion events is my guess. I have to go back and look at that, but
okay. And we've got another question. What is the difference between timeline search and list mode search? Use case for each search mode. I can comment on this. The list search mode is for searching motion, events, alarms, and getting thumbnails associated with those. So if you're looking for something specific, I like to use list search for integrations with analytic cameras or with access control from Cantech. We want to look for events or alarms inside of our access control system that have video tied to it. You're going to, or maybe a push button intercom. You're going to see those listed, in numerical order from basically start to finish. And then you're going to see a thumbnail of the actual clip that was recorded. In timeline search, we're just grabbing cameras and or analytics, and we're throwing them in the timeline, and then we can play multiple cameras at once, kind of like fast forward, fast rewind. You can jump ahead, jump backwards, and then you can export multiple cameras at one time. So a couple different use cases. We started with the list search from a development standpoint. That was always the basic way to search video, and then we added in list search for searching specifically for those events inside of Exacq Vision. Hopefully that helped answer your question. I think that is it on the text chat. With that, guys, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and stay tuned. We do have ISC West next week, and then look for another invite for week 3 for the Exacq Vision webinar series with IP security reps. Thank you again, everybody.